Not just the school teachers, the voters. The voters, don't forget it. Would they trust this crowd with the education system in this province again? Would they? Never. Never. I know it for a fact. I asked the people on the doorsteps. I saw the results come in. People said to me on so many occasions, why did so many people in Timberlea Prospect vote for the member of the NDP? And the answer is very simple. They didn't want that Liberal guy back. He was part of their government, and they had to run a retread guy again against us. Shame on them. Mr. Holland is not who they wanted. I believe it's 6 o'clock, and so I will move the debate.
Reach a moment of interruption. No member for Timberlea Prospect has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I collect my thoughts, I've had the opportunity to introduce this resolution, and I look forward to comments from all members of the House, because, of course, we're addressing a very important issue, and that is a possible conflict between an important recreational facility in the growing constituency of Timberlea Prospect and the highway that is being twinned from exit 3 through to exit 5. I would like, first of all, to bring to the Minister's attention and table it for members opposite a letter of March 26 that I wrote to the Minister, in which I include, Dear Mr. Minister, on Thursday, March 25th, I attended a community meeting. I'll be tabling this, Mr. Speaker, at which concerns were expressed about the proposed overpass over the rails to trails adjacent to Cranberry Lake. And I'd like to table that letter if I may. I did not receive a response to that letter, so I took the opportunity, because I'm aware of the fact the Minister and his staff, of course, have many other commitments, that I faxed the letter again, the 1st of April, and I received a handwritten note on the bottom of the reply in which it said, Mr. Estabrooks, written in handwritten and signed by a member of his staff, your inquiry will be responded to shortly. I still have not received a reply to this issue. Now, I want to give you a quick geography lesson, as I used to be a history teacher. The 103 is being twinned down the South Shore Highway, and it's going along at a very good pace. The concern we have is that we have a rails to trails that we have invested many dollars in and received support from Sports and Recreation. And the trail crosses currently under the 103, adjacent to Cranberry Lake. Now, that current overpass is a correct, proper overpass. But what is being proposed is a tunnel, an underpass, if the terminology is correct, a tunnel that would be 60 feet long and would have no lights. In fact, we were creating a major problem along the BLT rails to trails. Now, if you've ever been on one of these rails to trails, the rails to trails in which I am fortunate enough to be involved is a piece of wonderful sidewalk, almost. It has crusher dust on it. People take their strollers out. You have people on bicycles. You have hikers. And it's a multi-purpose trail. You also have the ATV use. But let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, and I can bring the example of a young woman who I used to teach in the school system, Rhonda Lynch. I met Rhonda and her daughter out the other day as I was coming down the trail, and she and her young daughter were out on the trail just after the 103, where it crosses the rails to trails, and they were biking out towards Sir John A. Macdonald High School. If a tunnel is put there, one of these huge culverts that's going to be 60 feet long, 20 meters, I'm told, that will be a dangerous place that Rhonda and her daughter will never want to go through again. It will be a hangout for teenagers. And unfortunately, I know I don't want to give a bad name to all teenagers, but it'll be part of the community that will absolutely not use this part of the Rails to Trails. It will stop. It will become a dangerous area, and people are extremely concerned about the plans that the Department of Transportation has. Now, Mr. Speaker, I have the opportunity to be served by the Masthead News. And in this edition of the Masthead News, and I'll do a copy of this, and you, Mr. Page, can deliver this in just a moment, but if you could give me a moment here. The headline says, Estabrooks wants overpass across trail. This is in the Masthead News that has been published today. And in it, I ask for members of the community to contact the Transportation Minister or to send emails or faxes to me or letters so that I can bring them to the minister's attention. Now, I have heard many times how important it is to keep young people physically active. I've heard how it's important to have them involved in recreational facilities. Well, let me tell you, this is a wonderful facility. It's a hiking trail. And if you want to shut down that hiking trail, if you want to shut down the community sidewalk that goes through Beachville, Lakeside, Timberley, out to the Lake of the Woods, out to Sheldrake Lake, you put a tunnel there, which is what is currently proposed, not a proper overpass, not where you have proper lighting, not where you're going to have a place that's going to be nothing more than a hangout. You are going to have a real lack of use of this important trail. Mr. Speaker, I hope the minister is aware of the fact that he will be receiving follow-up information. He will be receiving contacts. There will be people from the community who will be expressing their concern about this issue. Now, I understand it could come down to a matter of dollars and cents. I'm also aware of the fact that when attenders called for a section of a twinned highway, there's no question the twinned highway is badly needed. But it's just as important that our recreation facilities, in this case, a hiking trail, continues to receive the proper use, which it is continuing to receive each and every day. I'm aware of the fact that there are hikers and walkers, that there are people who have said there is under no circumstances we will go through a 60-foot tunnel with no lights and a tunnel that could be dangerous to young men and women, seniors, or other people that are traveling through that portion of our trail. Now, I understand that the Minister of Transportation has some tough decisions to make when it comes to looking at different projects throughout the province. But I think it's of real importance that we understand that we are not just concerned about getting to and from Metro. We're also concerned when we live in the community, we want to have the recreational facilities at hand. Currently, the HRM is doing a review of facilities across the province, across the HRM, the municipality. They're doing this review across the municipality. They're looking at facilities and how this growing community needs more indoor facilities. It needs more attention to fields. It needs more attention to basketball courts, and of course, skateboard parks and things like that. But if you look at the most used recreational facility that we have in the growing communities that I represent, we will turn to our Rails to Trails project. Our Rails to Trails, whether it's from the Lakeside Coca-Cola plant, all the way through the communities of Beachville, Lakeside, Timberley, out past Lewis Lake, as far down as the member from Chester St. Margaret's, where the St. Margaret's Trail begins, the St. Margaret's Rails to Trails begins. So I think it's of real importance that we understand that this is a recreational opportunity for our community. We use it all the time. We use it for all kinds of great ways and all kinds of great reasons. So I think that I hopefully will have the support of the member from Chester St. Margaret's on this issue. I hope that I will have the support of the Minister of Transportation and Public Works. And our community will have a trail which will be able to continue to use in a safe manner. At that stage, Mr. Speaker, I want to particularly thank the efforts of Catherine Cleffens. Catherine and her husband Eric have been monumental in their work on the BLT Rails to Trails. Sue Matthew has been also their complement in the St. Margaret's Bay Rails to Trails. But if you want to shut down a trail, if you want to shut down a wonderful recreational facility, what you do is you put a poorly lit, no lights at this stage from what we understand, tunnel under the 103 section that's going to be twinned. You don't have a proper overpass, and I will tell you, we will have a recreational opportunity that will be shut down. So I look forward to support for the Minister of Transportation on this issue, and the members opposite are aware of the importance of this topic to the people of Beachville, Lakeside, Timberley, Tantallon, Lewis Lake, etc. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. And I recognize the honourable member for Chester St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I very much appreciate the opportunity to be part of the late debate. And basically, of course, I think it's everybody that lives along the South Shore or Chester St. Margaret's or Timberley Prospect. Basically, Nova Scotia is about the same, well, pretty well. 10 years ago, we counted all the people living in Nova Scotia. I think in 2002, we've come up with about 30,000 more or something like that. I don't know exact numbers. About the same size. But anybody that lives in the area where the honourable member from Timberley Prospect or I live in, we do know something's different. Many people have moved, and many people have moved to live there. There's numerous residential places and things like this. So the world is changing. And it's very, very important that, of course, we have to, everybody has to go to work. But at the same time, everybody has to have a nice, enjoyable area. And this is, there is some challenges to meet, that's for sure. And I very much feel very proud of the Minister of Transportation and this side of the House, at any rate, I think everybody is, that improving Highway 103, many, many people have talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, but now finally, there's where the budget right now is $19 million more to improve Highway number 3, that is twin it, from exit number 3 to exit number 5. And it isn't just patchwork that'll go up the next day. It's a $19 million job, and it's certainly going to have everybody in the area, I think, finally realize they're doing this for everybody here. It's a good idea. And of course, I did see the minister, or the the member from Chester, Timberley Prospect, has talked about safety as being a #1 issue. That's correct. Another one is, of course, that everybody, he mentioned some examples of all the people getting out to use the trail, very important too. And the idea is, of course, that there's trails, the Timberley, Beachville, Lakeside, Timberley rail to trails, and then of course you get in the head of St. Margaret's Bay Trail, and then you get in the Aspatogan Trail, because everybody realizes that it's all work and no play or no enjoyment, recreational job. You just can't live in an area. It's certainly adding to it, and we certainly should be doing what we can do to make the area very pleasant. And basically, certainly we are doing that. Of course, I think many people realize that the trails, what used to be the old rail line, is now, this is property of the Department of Natural Resources. And of course, any design of any thing under the, or over the Highway 103 will have to be okayed by the Department of Natural Resources. And so basically what's going on, of course, the Department of Transportation are looking at twinning the highway from exit 3 to exit 5. And so, of course, I think everybody realizes too that many people that work for the Department of Transportation and Public Works are indeed engineers. And they're not just naive people fresh out of college or anything like that, or just starting an engineering degree. They have some various good input onto what can be done facing various challenges. And I understand that some people have brought to the attention of the Department of Transportation and Public Works that the opening, per se, that is the proverbial tunnel under the Highway 103, would be long and dark. Well, I hope those people also realize that we do have 24-hour lights if we wanted them. We do have various challenges throughout the world, and they'd be all well aware of it, or at least to study it. And if this was a problem in another place, they'd have a solution. And basically, and I'm sure they are studying that solution. I think it's very, very wise that people, before something is done, they've said, here, we don't want it this way, we don't want it that way, we don't want it like this. And they've certainly, I understand, made their points of view known to the Department of Transportation. And they will take their expertise, indeed they do have expertise, and do a good study on it. And of course, I think the other thing is, in fact, if I have time, I can go on, and I'm very, very thrilled to hear our Minister of Transport and Public Works tell about what we've got and the challenges we have and how we're meeting them. We haven't met them all, but we're going in the right direction. Now this year, $112.8 million is improving our roads. When we started, in 1999, the capital addition was, budget was $38 million. Duh, we're going in the right direction. You're darn right we are. But I think everybody should appreciate too that if you put a tunnel down, the cost of something, the average tunnel costs and whatever, this is not a specific number, it's at least a ballpark figure, is at least start that at $500,000. The minute you decide to go and fix an area and bring an overpass over something else, minimum costs $1 million. Then if you say, oh my goodness, we should have an interchange and all that good stuff, and as they are repairing on that road too, that's at exit 5, to make it more adequate to handle the traffic that they do have. But at any rate, to build one of those, an exit, is between $5 to $10 million. So we have to make sure that anything that is done has to meet the needs, and also has to watch the cost too, because we are not in a position, and because of the great costs that we have in the future and are working on, we can't just waste money. We have to spend our money as wisely as we possibly can. So it's got to be cost effective. And so basically, I think they will very much look at that. And I think it's very, very wise that the people that felt that use the trail on a regular basis, and I know the MLA from Timberley Prospect pointed out to many people that use that. It's certainly, they should certainly be listened to. And we have to bring in something that will they want to use the trail. Many people want to use the trail. Yes, that's the number one thing. Everybody wants to use the trail. In the same area, somebody wants to go into work and go out to work and travel along the 103. Many people want to do that, and they will do that. So we have to have a compromise to do this as it should be, cost effective. Of course, I know the people here on this side of the House realize that I think everybody's aware that about in mid-19, well, I should say at least 1999 or just before that or something, there was a plan. And various people, bureaucrats that work for the Department of Transportation and Public Works said, okay, if money was no object, we would need to make effective roads in Nova Scotia and repair the ones we have, not so many new ones, but just what improved to the point of being as good as when we were built. We have a deficit in this regard. We have a $3.5 billion deficit. We don't have that sort of money. but we are going in that direction. So we have to be very cost effective when we do that. And I'm Mr. Speaker, I appreciate, I can't go on, but I think we can settle any concerns about this. First, make the trail continuous. From the trail from Beachville, Lakeside, Timberley to St. Margaret's Bay Trail and all that. It's a continuous trail, and I'm sure people will live through it and do well with it. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know if there's somebody else. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, you'll tell me if I have to go longer than
You
that.
have about 20 seconds.
20 seconds, okay. But I think we can solve that problem because it's certainly a very important thing to do, but it's got to be done cost effectively. And the best thing is to 60, if the plan is for a tunnel of 60 feet in length with floodlights in it and all that stuff, I don't think that's the end of the world, and I think we'll live through it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. That's all the members for late debate. The House will recess until 6:30, at which time the House will resume in the Committee of Whole House and Supply.
Hello, I'd like to recognize the Government House Leader.
Would you please call the estimates of the Minister of Education?
The estimates for the Minister of Education, I'll recognize the member for Timberlea Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. It's been a pleasure speaking to you for the past number of hours. I'd like to thank you for your time.
Thank you. Minister of Education.
Mr. Chair, how much time is left in the estimates this evening?
Pardon me?
How much time is left?
There's approximately, let me see, Minister, it goes till 40 minutes.
20.
That's right.
Do you want to go to David tonight, or do you want me? I've got some things I'd like to say, but I'll defer to what you folks want to do. Why don't you take it through till Okay, thank you. I will run the timeout then.
Minister, it's over at 7:18.
Yeah, there are a number of things, Mr. Chair, that I'd like to say in winding down this debate. What I would like to do, first of all, is to thank the members from across the House who've made this 16 hours such an interesting experience. Mr. Chair, this reminded me a little bit when I was occupying another portfolio, and I would say I'd like to thank my staff, not only the Director of Corporate, the Executive Director of the Corporate Section, and the Deputy Minister for being here, but also I have staff in the balcony, Mr. Chair, Mr. Ben McIntyre, one of the financial experts who has helped me considerably in trying to compose himself, and I see up there I have Ann Power, who visited with us today, the person who does most of the work, or at least is the head of the special education sector. Susan Crandall is up there today because I'm going to say some things in governance, and she's very much part of that process. And of course, my own Sue McCaig, who is the Director of Communications, not only putting up with me as my role as Minister of Education, but endured me for 3 years when I was in the Health Department. So anyway, a saint, but I would like Mr. Chair is really to say thank you to staff in the Department of Education. You know, they do a tremendous amount of work to get ready for the estimates process, and I don't know how many hours go into it, but the books that we get to help us are, you know, in the case of the estimates, my book is like that, and they have even more detailed knowledge than I have, and of course for question period, Sue and her staff, along with others, prepare us for that too. But anyway, Mr. Chair, I want to say again thank you to staff for all of their assistance in helping me to be prepared for this process, but also for their ongoing assistance as we go through it. Every once in a while, you see me look up in the balcony or look from side to side, and it is two reasons. One, so I don't have to look at the people across the floor, but secondly, I do get some useful interventions from that. So, Mr. Chair, thank you for the opportunity to rise in a matter that rose in this House on April 29th during a second reading debate on Bill 62, the Financial Measures Act. The matter in question refers to Clause 16 of that bill, which is to provide for the transition of the present pilot district school boards in the Straits, South Shore, and Tri-County to regional school board status this summer. The honourable member for Halifax Fairview noted that the information about the experience with the pilot project has not been widely publicized, and without such information it's more difficult to determine whether it is proposed, what is proposed in Bill 62 is in fact the right thing to do. And he suggested that it might be useful for the responsible minister to stand up and address these concerns that the member raised. And as Minister of Education, I'm pleased to provide information that I think will be useful on this point. Mr. Chairman, the members of this House will recall that the pilot project was put in place in the spring 2000 to address concerns that existed about the former Southwest Regional School Board. 2 pilot district educational school boards were established in the area, which is now called the South Shore and Tri-County. Matters of non-educational service provision, including finance, human resources, facilities, and transportation, were assigned to one service provider headed by a chief executive officer who reports to the government. The pilot expires upon the next regular school board elections in October 2004. The 2000 legislation provided that at least 8 months before the pilot expired, there would be an evaluation of the pilot structure, the report of which would be made public. In the fall of 2001, Dr. Colin Dodds was appointed to chair a 3-person independent panel to conduct the evaluation, and that report was made public in January 2002, and it remains on the department's website to this day. And I can tell you, Mr. Chair, that was the report that I tabled earlier today, and it's available to all members. It recommended changes to improve the operation of the pilots, many of which were accepted by the department and implemented. These were documented in the department's response to the Dodds report, which was also made public. So government has fulfilled its statutory obligation in the Act, and that information is public information. In the meantime, Mr. Chairman, the pilot model was extended to the Strait in April 2002. Later that year, it was decided to assess all 3 pilots to determine whether the structure had achieved its intended purpose. Those were to enable the district school boards to focus more closely on education and whether regional service provision enabled greater efficiency and accountability for dollars spent. This was done to help identify what did and did not work well as a basis for decisions on what should replace the pilot structure when it expires later this year. This assessment, conducted by senior staff of the Department of Education in consultation with the boards, occurred over the calendar year 2003. 2 full consultation meetings were held with each pilot district school board and with their senior staff. There were ample opportunities for elected board members to have input to the drafts of the report. The final report went to the affected school boards, the Nova Scotia School Boards Association, in March 2004, after all the input had been received. It was not the subject of a formal press release, as it was considered to be primarily of internal interest. However, Mr. Chairman, I'm pleased to table the report here today with copies for the educational critics, and that is the one I did table. The report includes a number of recommendations that came from school board elected board members about what they wanted to see regardless of the structure after 2004. They wanted greater control and input to the services being provided to the boards, more direct control over HR functions and financial expenditures made on their behalf. They also wanted better support for any transition, including communications, professional development, and advisory supports. The relevant portions of Bill 62 take into consideration those stated needs. The report found that the structure itself was workable, although somewhat cumbersome. All pilot district boards stated they spend more time on educational matters. Problems remained in regional service delivery, and these were found to really depend on the degree of determination and willingness of the participants to make whatever structure there is to work most effectively. For those reasons, it was decided that the existing regional pilot district school boards should become regional boards, the same as other boards in Nova Scotia, based on a carefully planned transition to be supported by my department. We have been and will continue to work with the pilot district boards to this end. In summary, this approach respects the recommendations of the affected board members and will fulfill the pilot board's long-standing wish to have the same powers and responsibilities as other regional school boards in Nova Scotia. Mr. Chair, I realize this has been somewhat lengthy. However, I trust it's been a little bit helpful for my honorable colleagues on both sides of the House to understand what is being proposed in Clause 16 of Bill 62, and to understand clearly that what is being proposed will be well supported to ensure it is in the best interests of education and of students in the Strait and southwest portions of this province. Mr. Chair, as I said earlier, I'd like to thank the honourable members opposite for their questions and for their interventions and for their interest in the quality of education that is being provided in the public school system in the university system, in the community college system, and the other partner, the private trade schools of our province. This year's estimates debate on education did give me the opportunity to highlight some of the positive steps we're taking in education in this province, along with our partners, the teachers, the parents, the school boards, and others, to help all children succeed. There is also a great deal of good work that wasn't raised for discussion. I want to reiterate that education is a priority of this government. There is more money being invested in education this year compared to last. And when we take a look at the comparison to when we came in government, there was significantly more money being invested in education, which is good. Our primary focus in the public schools continues to be on helping students improve their skills and abilities in reading, writing, and math. And there will be more programs for children and more resources for teachers in 2004-2005. We have put 1 million additional books into the classrooms of this province, and next year there will even be more books for students and professional development for teachers. What I'd like to recite at this particular time, Mr. Chair, is that I have mentioned a couple of times in response to questions and in answers that other thoughts that I've had the opportunity to put on the floor of this House, that I was at Redcliffe Middle School, which is in the riding of my good friend from Colchester North. And it's a middle school. It has students in there, I guess, from probably grades 4 to 8 or 4 to 7. And it's a newer school, I suppose less than 10 years old, but it has a tremendous focus on literacy. And I happen to have the opportunity to participate in a minor way in their literacy awards presentations, and it was very, very interesting to do that. But what I particularly wanted to tell you was not about the students who won prizes and the great work that the teachers and the parents are doing there in terms of literacy, but the Scholastic Book Company, and the representative was there. And Scholastic donated to that school 650 novels or pieces of reading material for the students of that school. Now, the interesting thing was, I was there when the Scholastic rep made the presentation to the school, and all of the students thought it was books for the school. But you know, on Friday, every student in that school got a book to take home for their own. And this is the type of thing that goes on in Redcliffe, and I just want to acknowledge with thanks. You know, we talk about commercialism of education and the companies who support education, but I wanted to recognize the Scholastic Book Company for doing that for the students of Redcliffe, and I expect if they did it in Redcliffe, they have done it in other schools too. Mr. Chair, a very good thing. A very good thing. So thank you to the Scholastic Book Company. Ask him how long. Huh? Oh, is it that long? Okay, as I said, there will be more programs for children, more resources for teachers in 2004-2005. There will be more books for students and professional development for teachers. And we've secured $1 million to help students who didn't meet expectations in their literacy assessments. Mr. Chairman, smaller class sizes, more support for children with special needs, including a tuition support program, or other examples of the work we're doing with our partners in education to be sure students learn and learn well. We're also looking forward to working on a new funding formula for school boards, which I've mentioned in here 2 or 3 times. And we will also continue to work with our partners in the post-secondary sector. Our commitment to the Nova Scotia Community College Growth Plan continues. Moving forward with our skills agenda remains a priority. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, there are many exciting opportunities underway in education. At the same time, we appreciate that there will be some challenges. We've worked hard to increase education funding as much as possible this year, but understand that school boards will still face some pressures. We will all continue to face increasing costs in a fiscal environment with limited resources. In response, the department will continue to work with our partners to carefully manage all of our resources to ensure that we get our work done and done well. I'm confident that working with teachers, parents, school boards, the post-secondary sector, and our industry partners and others, we will continue to provide and expand quality education programs and services. And I'm very much looking forward to the year ahead as we continue to work with our partners to implement our learning for Life Plan and many other initiatives to help children, youth, and adults grow towards their full potential right here in Nova Scotia. Mr. Chairman, these are my closing comments, but just before sitting down, I would like to table these documents which are in response to questions that have come. And Mr. Chairman, therefore, I move that the estimates for the Department of Education resolve that a sum not exceeding $1,2,848,000 be granted to the Lieutenant Governor to defray expenses in respect of the Department of Education pursuant to the estimate. And Mr. Chair, also be it resolved that a sum not exceeding $206,531,000 be granted to the Lieutenant Governor to defray expenses in respect of assistance to universities, Department of Education, pursuant to the estimate. I so move.
Thank you, Member. It is moved that resolutions E3, E4 stand. Is it agreed? Agreed. It's agreed. Recognize the Government House Leader.
Mr. Chairman, would you please call the estimates of the Minister of Community Services?
Call the estimates of the Minister of Community Services, and I'll recognize the Minister of Community Services for opening comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, very much enjoyed hearing the debate thus far in the Department of Education, but I would also say that I'm very pleased to be up here speaking this evening so that when I'm done, the critics from the opposite parties will have a chance to make full use of the 4 hours tomorrow. I am here to present the information and a few opening comments on the department and some of the initiatives that have gone on in the last year and which we look forward to pursuing in the 2004-2005 fiscal year in our efforts to support the work of some of the more vulnerable in our society here in Nova Scotia. There are approximately 1,000 staff in 50 sites across this province, working in partnership, and I want to stress that, with community agencies and other service providers, because the thing that is unique about community services is that perhaps unlike some of the other line departments, a lot of the services that are provided under the name of community services, in fact, are services that are actually delivered by nonprofit organizations and other organizations in the community, but funded by the Department of Community Services. And as such, it gives us a unique relationship with them, one that I very much enjoy as minister, and I've certainly always looked forward to the opportunity to meeting with our community partners. Often they're made up of nonprofit boards, and quite often some of the most marvelous people in the community end up on those boards. Community Services provides a broad range of programs that contribute to better futures for our children and families, persons with disabilities, seniors, and indeed communities throughout all of Nova Scotia. These programs play a significant role in furthering basically the overall health and well-being of Nova Scotians, and especially vulnerable Nova Scotians or Nova Scotians that may be for circumstances beyond their control, just at a difficult time in their life. Programs are grouped into 4 areas to meet the needs of Nova Scotians. Our community supports for adults, which is there to assist adults with intellectual disabilities. They may be mental health consumers that are past the acute care part of their treatment, and indeed some, but in a lesser part, with physical disabilities or some combination of those 3. Employment support and income assistance. This is the new program, Mr. Chair, that has replaced the former municipal social assistance programs which were uploaded to the province some years ago, and the old family benefits program. This was integrated on August the 1st of 2001 into the employment support and income assistance program, and a very positive initiative as it, first of all, stabilized the rates right across the, or standardized the rates right across the province, but also brought a balance to the program, where the employment support to try to empower our clients to make the most of their abilities and to pursue careers where possible, and income assistance to support them until they are able to get on their feet and make it on their own. Family and Children's Services, and again, a lot of these services are provided by children's aid societies. There's 14 spread throughout the province, plus there are 6 branch offices which provide that service. So together in Nova Scotia, we have something that's unique. It's a mixed delivery model, and in fact, we are one of the last in the country to have such a model. Housing services, which provides affordable housing to lower-income Nova Scotians, also delivers a number of other housing grants. An introduction.
Thank you, Minister. You would allow some time for an introduction? Thank you. I'll recognize the member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you. And Mr. Minister, I thank you for giving me a quick moment. In the West Gallery, we have some distinguished visitors, 22 Cubs and Scouts from the 2nd Hatchet Lake Cubs Scouts, and I have the privilege of representing the Prospect Road. They are here with their leaders, Richard Dyke, Eleanor Turner, and excuse me, Ann, I'm looking at the writing here. If I mispronounce it, it's one of my good eyes that's working. Ann Fleming, Steve Casely, and Sandy Fosson, and parents. And I would ask the Cubs and Scouts to stand and receive the recognition of the House.
And indeed, welcome from all the members here. Thank you. I'll recognize the honourable member for Community Service.
Yes, and I too extend that greeting to the honourable members, Cubs and Scouts, from his constituency. I can tell you that of all my 5 boys, at least for some point in time, each and every one of them was involved in it, although one of them was only for a few sessions, because when he was in Beavers, they told them that the motto was share, 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 and he went to school, and one of the other children at the school knew that this was the motto, and he had a Joe Louis or something, and the other child was interested in having the Joe Louis, so he pointed out that he was a Beaver and it was up to him to share, so he gave him the Joe Louis, and unfortunately that ended his time in Beavers, but the others stuck it out for a much longer period of time, and it was a great benefit to them. Housing services. Again, housing services provides public housing in some cases for low-income Nova Scotians. A lot of the delivery is on a rent-to-income model, where basically between 25 and 30% of the tenant's gross income is charged as rent. It brings their shelter component within reason. It is deemed that 30% is the cutoff for affordable housing. When a family is paying more than 30% for affordable housing, it is deemed that they have a problem. So housing services writes that regardless of the resident's income, we know that the numbers will work if they're in public housing. We also have rent supplements, which is not unlike the portable child care subsidies, in that what we do here with about 800 Nova Scotians is that they go out, they pick the apartment, and we make up the difference to bring their rent in line with the means that they have to pay. That is also another very effective method of doing this. And while I'm speaking about rent supplement, and because I know it's going to come up in the estimates, I think it's very important to point out that this has been judged by the C.D. Howe Institute as being 85% efficient in terms of addressing the provision of affordable housing, whereas the public housing model comes in at about 37%. I personally am pleased to have both, but I think it's important to recognize that by giving people choice, it quite often allows to a better long-term outcome. In addition to that, I want to say that there is additional money in this year's budget to address the province's commitment to the affordable housing program. It's another $1,665. $1,650,000. A portion of that is going to go for rent supplement. Very pleased to enhance that part of the program, but there is also a very important reason to do it in this year, because the federal government has recognized that the rent supplement, the discount at present value of the rent supplement, can be used to draw down a comparable amount of capital from the affordable housing program. So as an example, $500,000 in rent supplement would almost equal the equivalent of $5 million in capital. So that certainly means that we'll have the means to move ahead quickly this year as the requests for proposals come in to the department as a result of our recent announcement for more affordable housing units, rental units. And there are other programs that are delivered under housing services. Together, staff in these programs work with service providers and community partners to ensure high-quality child care, residential support for adults with disabilities, employment and income support for people in transition, and other services to help ensure all Nova Scotians have a chance to reach their full potential, something that I know that all parties can agree on. I would like to take this opportunity to review some highlights from the last year, if I may, and to speak about some of the initiatives for the coming year. In a time of many competing priorities, I am pleased the province has made a significant investment in the social service system by increasing the department's budget by close to $30 million. We look forward to an exciting and challenging year, one that holds opportunities to improve social service programs for families and Nova Scotians in need. Our focus in the year ahead will be protecting what Nova Scotians value: a secure, predictable, and sustainable social service system that is responsible and available to Nova Scotians when and where they need it. The Department of Community Services provides a wide range of housing supports to Nova Scotians. These services are designed to help low-income Nova Scotians become homeowners, repair their homes so that they can stay in them longer, and make adaptations that make their homes more accessible. Services provided include loan and mortgage programs, and in this case it could be that a family has no down payment, and if their income is of a modest nature, in fact the department can in some instances make 100% mortgage advance to them. Grants for repairs, which is primarily under the Rural Residential Assistance Program, and tax rebates for senior homeowners, something that I would suggest I have found to be very important in my own constituency, and for any members that have not made their constituents aware of this. This is for seniors that are on guaranteed income supplement. We do have a list of those who are in guaranteed income supplement, but at the department we have no way of knowing whether they're a homeowner and paying taxes. I can tell you that in a recent constituency newsletter that I put out in King South, I have never had such an uptake on an article. So for those of you that are thinking about your next constituency newsletter, it's a very important assist for those seniors that might qualify. It's a very simple process. Once we know that they own their own homes, it's just a question of verifying with the department whether they're on guaranteed income supplement. The application process is quite simple. Social housing services are also provided in coordination with housing authorities around the province. Over 12,000 seniors and family units are available across the province. In 2004-2005, we are affirming our spending commitments on these existing housing and repair programs. The province is also partnering with the federal government on an affordable housing program for low-income Nova Scotians, which I mentioned before. I would suggest the rent subsidy approach, which we are taking for our share, allows us to better target low-income Nova Scotians, but we certainly welcome the federal government's participation in providing capital, which will likely end up in more public housing stock. It is expected that between 850 and 1,500 affordable housing units will be created or renovated under this $37.26 million affordable housing agreement by 2007. The Government of Canada, through Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, is contributing half, which is $18.63 million, and these funds are being matched by the province and other housing partners as part of a larger strategy to provide a whole range of housing options for Nova Scotians, and I hope the members opposite, the critics, will have a chance to inquire and further embellish those statements. I know that they know more about it, and perhaps it would be a good topic as they use their time. Several announcements have already been made under this agreement. The first project, of course, was the 15-unit townhouse complex in the Annapolis Valley, completed the last fall. And it was also good to see that the town of Middleton participated in this in a financial manner of $62.5? Approximately $62.5 thousand. It was followed by the construction of 6 semi-detached homes in Halifax under the new home ownership program, and that's on Creighton Garish. And I can tell you that from my apartment in the morning while I'm waiting for the elevator to come, it does my heart good to see the construction going on there. And I know that there are going to be 6 families that are going to be very pleased to own their own homes. And my hope is that perhaps they will have come from public housing stock, and that will free up another 6 units for Nova Scotians in need of affordable housing. Other homes across the province will receive repairs under the Home Preservation Program. In addition, funding will be made available for new rental housing based on a multi-year formula that ensures long-term affordability, and as I mentioned before, that will be an enhanced provincial rent supplement program. This translates into a guaranteed rent supplement for 10 years, ensuring that housing support is reaching those who need it most, low-income Nova Scotians. In early childhood development, we'll be investing in programs to enhance the lives of young children, and that continues to be a priority. Very pleased to see that the federal government's initiatives in this area. I want to acknowledge Minister Jane Stewart, who I found to be a commendable minister during my time in working with her. I thought that she did a lot for enhancing programs for children, and I wish her well in her new pursuits, which I think take her overseas. We are committed to enhancing and expanding programs under the Early Childhood Development Initiative, strengthening services for families with children and providing supports for young children will help create healthy and strong children tomorrow and future prosperity for this province. In 2004-2005, support will continue for programs that encourage healthy childhood development and quality child care. Over the next year, we will once again increase the number of subsidized child care spaces, enhance parent education programs provided through our family resource centers, work with the Department of Health in expanding the home visiting program for parents with children under 3 years of age, further develop inclusion initiatives for children with special needs, a very important part of our service delivery, and expand the early language and learning program. In 2004-2005, low-income families will benefit from a $1.3 million increase to the child care subsidy budget. and that budget is already been partially implemented. 400,000 of that is in, with a 50-cent per day increase in the subsidy for subsidized childcare. There's another 900,000 which has been committed to this, and that will follow a subsidy review, which was in fact asked by the sector, and we very much look forward to getting that in the next couple of months. Resources have been invested in that to expedite the process. These subsidies enable families to access quality childcare while pursuing their education, maintaining employment, or trying to pursue a job to enter the workforce. The department is reviewing how subsidies are allocated and to determine the best way to support quality childcare across the province. To date, close to $40 million has been invested in the Early Childhood Development Initiative, and again, I want to acknowledge Minister Stewart's efforts in that area. Community supports for adults. In this program, the budget will receive a $10.3 million boost in 2004 and 2005. This is a very important program as it helps about 4,500 Nova Scotians with intellectual disabilities or long-term mental illness live in the community. And as I mentioned before, a very small fraction also have physical disabilities or may have all three of those, any combination of those three challenges. Since 2000, there has been almost a $50 million increase in this program to support the clients and the families served by this program. $1 million of this year's additional funding will help to launch a revamped Community Supports for Adults program. And this is good news because when we started the Community Supports for Adults renewal initiative, the caveat was that it had to be done within this existing fiscal envelope. So I'm very pleased that the government has seen fit to add $1 million in this area and shorten the waiting list for Nova Scotians with disabilities and their families to speed up their acquisition of the appropriate supports. A wide-ranging review of this program began in December of 2002. The review is addressing the evolving needs of the people served by the program, as well as a growing demand for these services. In March 2004, the department released its discussion paper reflecting the ideas and research gathered during the review period. The discussion paper includes a review of best practices and research in a number of key areas, such as funding, assessment tools, policy, licensing, and consumer supports. And having released this discussion paper, I want to make it very clear that while a tremendous amount of collaboration went into this and work and research outside of the province, public feedback ultimately is the most important part of this review process. We're very pleased by the interest that's shown by our clients or their families, the service providers, and the other organizations and advocacy groups that care so much about the people we try to serve with the Community Supports for Adults program. Program representatives have met with more than 50 community organizations, advocacy groups, and service providers across the province to produce the discussion paper. Client focus groups were also held to make sure Nova Scotians with disabilities have meaningful opportunities to share their thoughts in the program. Public feedback on the CSA discussion paper will be reviewed to determine the scope and type of services Nova Scotians want to see in this renewed program. Other supports to children and families include, over the next year, we will also examine our adoption program. This is something that I know is near and dear to the hearts of any parents that aspire to adopt children, or for any children out there that are waiting for that family to step forward. We want to make sure that Nova Scotian children who cannot live with their birth families have every opportunity to become part of a loving adoptive family. There are some matters there that are, I would say, obstacles to adoption, and we hope that this dialogue will be constructive and bring forward a new adoption program that will start to shrink the list of adoptable children in this province, providing them with what every child deserves, which is their own family. In the area of employment support and income assistance, since 1999, 2000, client caseloads have declined by 16%, from 38,000 to 32,000. At the same time, total program expenditures have remained relatively the same during this period, resulting in an increased investment to our clients, something that I'm very pleased that we've been able to deliver as a government, and I would suggest that in many cases, clients are much better off than they were under the split Municipal Social Assistance Program and the Family Benefits Program. It's also important to note that the number of caseworkers, that being 235 in the income assistance component of the system, has remained the same, resulting in improved service for clients. That will have improved the ratio, of course, between the number of the ratio between the caseworkers and the clients, and anything that you can do to provide more support for the clients is going to help empower them, and it's very important for them to have that feeling of connectivity with their caseworker. More than 10,000 clients were assisted by our employment supports during the last fiscal year. And again, in my opening comments, I made reference to the importance of the employment support and income assistance dual approach to assisting our clients that are on this program. 43% of these people participated in educational or training programs. 31% began employment as a result of these supports. Mr. Chair, people in Nova Scotia want to work, and we are providing the support they need to become self-sufficient, such as they are able. As I have traveled about and I have met people that are either on assistance and working their way off, perhaps those that have been on assistance and are so proud that they've worked their way off, and spoken with caseworkers who used to be frustrated by the obstacles that prevented clients from working their way off of the system and into employment, I can tell you that I am very pleased with the comments that are coming from them. We have not solved all the problems, but I think by and large, this was a landmark piece of legislation, and that the province is a much better place for it, because these people that wanted to make a contribution are now able to make that contribution, and that is part of the reason why we're setting record employment numbers in the province. An important first step to what ultimately we hope develops into meaningful careers. It's also important to note that 75% of clients need only a portion of the income assistance that is available to them to supplement their main source of income, such as employment, or they may be on pension. Over $20 million in additional wages are now being earned by clients in the employment support and income assistance program since it started on August the 1st of 2001. That's a good development. It's good for the clients, it's good for the community, and it's good for the province. Mr. Chair, I am pleased to have provided these highlights from the Department of Community Services. I was going to speak on a little longer, but I have been joined by Clem Henneberry, who is he's the proverbial right-hand person, but today he's going to be my left-hand person. And since Clem has come here, if the member opposite is prepared to stand up and wants to maybe make some opening statements, I would just say that over the coming year, we'll continue to work with other levels of government, our community partners, and our clients, and I very much look forward to the questions and comments from the opposition critics, and look forward to the next few hours. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister. I'll recognize the honourable member for Dartmouth South, Portland Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
3 minutes.
Yes. I just want to ask the Minister, last year, or in the 2001-2002 accountability report, you stated that 90% of the department's social services to Nova Scotians in need were legislated, which means that if an individual qualifies for a service, it must be provided. Is that figure still accurate?
Honourable Minister of Education.
We would estimate that that would still be a fair assessment. Yes.
We're still on education. The Honourable Member for Dartmouth South Portland Valley.
Yes, I'm just wondering, have you been able to submit your 2004-2005 business plan yet?
Thank you, Minister. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Yes.
Okay. The Honourable Member for Portland Valley.
Was it the brief reference in the combined business report?
The Honourable Minister, did you hear that question, Minister? Perhaps she could repeat that?
Certainly. Yes, I am.
Order, please. The Honourable Member for Dartmouth South Portland Valley has the floor.
Thank you. There was a business plan submitted by the government that included just excerpts that appeared to be excerpts from the various department business plans. Is that what you're referring to?
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Honourable Member, I have seen the business plan and passed it on for distribution. If it has not been made public, I apologize for the former answer. The plan has been done, and we will just double check to make sure that in fact the entire plan has been made public. I know what you speak. You're talking about the government business plan with the excerpts.
Thank you, Minister. The Honourable Member for Dartmouth South Portland Valley.
Thank you. It would be very useful to have that, and I haven't seen it in any of the publications that came to me, so certainly if you could make a copy available, I'd really, really appreciate it. I think my last question this evening is going to be on what impact will the new Canada social transfer have on funding available to your department? I understand that it came into effect April the 1st, and the previous social transfer did have some conditions with it, things like the right to claim welfare, right to adequate income, right to assistance. And I'm just wondering if the new social transfer funding has similar principles or criteria around it.
Thank you, Member. The Honourable Minister of Community Services.
I believe the Honourable Member is referring to the Canada Health and Social Transfer. You're talking about...
Minister has about 20 seconds.
I wonder if that's a question that would better be answered by the Minister of Finance, because they are the ones that receive the transfer and it flows through finance to the various destination departments.
Thank you, Minister, and perhaps the member could wait till tomorrow and deal with that question. Recognize the Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move the committee to now rise, report considerable progress, beg leave to sit on a future day.
Chairman of the Committee on the Whole House and Supply reports.
Committee's met, made progress, and begs leave to sit again.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, would you please call the order of business public bills for second reading?
Public bills for second reading.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call Bill number 62, the Financial Measures 2004 Act?
The Honourable Member for Halifax Needham on Bill number 62.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know that we've had quite a few people speak on this bill, the Financial Measures Act, but I wanted to have an opportunity to say a few words before I will relinquish the floor. I know that members here, and probably some people at home who are watching, will know that the Financial Measures Act is a piece of enabling legislation that accompanies the budget, which we haven't yet finished examining, and haven't reached the point where we're ready to determine what will happen with the provincial budget. but the Financial Measures Act has a lot of components to it that will give the budget effect. And concerns have been expressed by certain aspects of some aspects of the Financial Measures Act in conjunction with the budget. Namely, I think the increase in the 500 and some odd user fees that have been announced by the government, which are certainly a piece of the Financial Measures Act. And Mr. Speaker, I know that probably you and your constituency, just as I and my constituency, have heard from people in our constituencies who are concerned about the rising user fees that are attached to so many government services. And the fact that increasing user fees is a very regressive approach to raising revenue in this province, because after all, a person pays the same fee for a service whether they have a very high income or a very low income. They're essentially charged the same amount of money, and it's a regressive form of revenue generation, and it's something that certainly we need to be very concerned about. And you know, we've seen, I think, this government's approach over the years to user fees as one that's quite liberal, Mr. Speaker, if you want to use that label. A liberal use of user fees by the John Hamm Conservative government in generating revenue. And so much so that some of these user fees now are being conceded as being really an increase in taxation, and not only about paying for the services that are associated with the service under question. You know, I was quite surprised to find out that people who go to the family court, or the Unified Family Court now, I guess it is, to make an application to have their maintenance enforced, their maintenance enforced, have to pay fairly hefty fees. And, you know, in some cases those fees will be waived, but Mr. Speaker, it's for some people a fairly, you know, it's a humiliating process to have to stand in front of some stranger and say, look, I really need to make this application to get the maintenance enforced so I can feed my kids and buy them school supplies and send them on the class trip and those kinds of things. But, you know, I don't have the $35 that you require in order for me to make this application. And there was a time not so long ago, Mr. Speaker, when these fees did not exist. You know, there were the access to the courts, for example, in instances of maintenance were certainly not a feature of trying to get maintenance and to enforce maintenance. So I think we all know, Mr. Speaker, because, you know, most of us have regular dealings with the government in our lives, you know, getting birth certificates, getting marriage licenses, paying motor vehicle registrations, these kinds of things. And we know that the fees are sometimes substantial, and for people with better incomes, this is not perhaps an issue, but certainly for people with fixed incomes, and which brings me to the group of people who speak the most to me about user fees and increasing costs through user fees, and it's seniors. And the Premier won't find that to be a surprise. I think, you know, for every sort of younger person who talks to me about user fees, I can probably point to 5 or 6 seniors that talk to me about user fees. And it's very, very clear that the seniors who have fixed incomes and a limited ability to grow those incomes are the people who are often the hardest hit by increases in user fees. And certainly in my constituency, seniors are not at all happy about this government's approach to providing public services. And it's interesting because it's often seniors who have a longer view of time, and they can remember a time when you had to pay fees for all kinds of things, including medical services. You know, they remember that. And then they remember when government became a more compassionate government and used the income tax system to collect revenue and provided services based on income tax. And now they see some erosion of that approach. And so you see this, and seniors certainly appreciate what's going on. And one of the concerns that has been expressed about the Financial Measures Act that I think is worth noting is how much of this act has nothing to do with financial measures and the budget. I think that there are parts of this particular piece of legislation that deal with the Education Act, and the questions have been asked, but I don't believe they've been answered. Why are amendments that essentially change the features of our education infrastructure embedded in the Financial Measures Act? Why weren't those introduced as a separate bill that would give members of this Assembly an opportunity to debate them in the context of the area of government in which they properly belong, and allow, you know, organizations and people from our communities to come forward and to speak to those concerns. So this is a concern that I've heard others raise, and it's a concern that I have, but we haven't had any answer here from the minister on this. This act refers to the termination of the pilot project in the Tri-County School Board. Yet I don't think we've had any report back from the government, from the Minister of Education, that told us what the results of that pilot project was. And I think that, you know, this is a government that likes to talk a lot about making decisions based on evidence, yet they certainly haven't provided any evidence to the House with respect to that aspect of the pilot project and how that actually went. So we would like to see that information. We'd like to know where is the study, where's the results, and whether or not the community was consulted in this process. Mr. Speaker, there are other provisions in this bill that have raised concerns here. In the official opposition last night, the leader of the official opposition, my colleague, the member from Dartmouth-Cole Harbour, spoke at length about the concerns that we have about the elimination of the grow-in provisions that, for pension benefits. And we still haven't had an adequate, I think, accounting of why this category of benefits is being eliminated. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, pensions are very important for people. In my constituency, I see people all the time who, again, are retired. They are increasingly facing incomes that are stagnant, particularly if they were involved in pension plans where annual increments depend on how well the investments from those pension plans have done. And I know that there are many seniors who are struggling because what are fairly meager modest pensions have seen no growth because of what's happening in the stock market in the last little while. So it's important, certainly, that we protect pensions for our seniors and we protect the pension rights for workers. And this particular provision, as I understand it, has the potential of eliminating benefits for a lot of people if they get into the situation where the business that they're in is no longer in business and they at some point require pension benefits. So this is of concern. It's not something that we should take lightly, and I would like to see us be able to improve on pension programs and policies and expand the pension system, not shrink the pension system, not reduce public pensions or other private pensions or other forms of pensions. So, Mr. Speaker, those are some of the concerns that I have, and there probably are one or two other things, but I'm happy, as our members of our caucus, to have this legislation go to the Law Amendments Committee and hear from members of the public and see if there is an opportunity then to improve on the Financial Measures Act. And we will do our best to make sure that Nova Scotians get the best deal we can give them, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to rise and speak to the Financial Measures Act. Mr. Speaker, as per usual, this bill enables government to implement a large number of mostly unrelated financial measures, and some which are not related to finances at all. This bill includes everything from a debt retirement fund to a change in the governance structure of the school boards. What is different this year is that the defeat of this bill is possible, and that could trigger the fall of this government. Mr. Speaker, it's important for members on the government side to recognize if the budget passes, this government is not out of the woods. Mr. Speaker, if anything is hidden in the budget that is not disclosed by government during estimates, we will get a second chance at this bill. I urge government members to take this in consideration when being probed on the estimates. This bill represents an admission by the government. It means on a simple level that some of the 560 fees announced earlier were in fact taxes and not user fees. The finance minister in particular has not been cooperative. He has held very superficial meetings with opposition parties, but has revealed nothing of importance to either party. In the fall, we received a preview of the public accounts and a preview of the forecast update. On both occasions, we did not get full disclosure. Mr. Speaker, what is worse is that the government failed to disclose measures which added $500 million to the debt. And with that, we now have a $12 billion debt in this province. And a lot of people in this province don't really know how much money that is. That amounts to every man, woman, and child in this province owing the bank at Bay Street $12,000 apiece. A young married couple with 2 children owe a debt in this province of $48,000 to the banks. Yearly, this family is paying $4,000 to service or pay the interest on this debt, and it's still growing. Mr. Speaker, again with this bill, we have demonstrated proof that government is not being upfront with the people of Nova Scotia and where we stand on our debt. We urge the government to immediately start a more open dialogue rather than paying lip service to opposition demands or inquiries, and take a firm stand on debt reduction. The pain now will only make this province stronger in the long run, and people will understand. Mr. Speaker, one of the One of the prominent features of this bill is the creation of the fund of the $6 million to help stop debt from growing. We believe there are much better ways to help stop this debt growing, and that is to promote economic development in this province. The debt will only start growing in 3 more years if everything goes to plan. We need to find better ways to creating growth through economic development, which will create jobs and much needed tax money. The problem with this so-called debt retirement fund is that it does not seem like anything has changed. We will be just short-changing other programs yearly, trying to find debt reduction money, which we have to. The trick is to earn money for debt reduction through job creation of economic development. In fact, the only difference is that management was changed to retirement, and the minister has to deposit another $6 million in another year without knowing where this will come from. Mr. Speaker, this seems on the surface to be a PR exercise to make people believe we are reducing the debt without a plan for next year's payment. The reality is that government will have to attain surpluses big enough to offset the borrowing for tangible capital assets such as roads, schools, etc. We have already taken maintenance money from schools. Will we take it from the roads for next year's payment? In 2007, the government projects that the debt retirement fund will contain $106 million. And if you believe that, again, that's a big if, the fund will result in a real surplus of maybe $19 million. So, Mr. Speaker, government is projecting that it needs another $100 million in the fund in order for it to hit $106 million. Is that realistic? I hope I'm wrong, but it's highly doubtful that the Debt Retirement Management Fund will ever hit that amount without a plan for more income for this province. My father always told me, son, if you want to spend more, you have to earn more, not borrow more. And that's how a properly run business has to be, and that's how that goes for government business also. Secondly, the borrowing for tangible capital assets, roads and schools will be $86 million in 2007. That means at the very least government will need to have $86 million surplus in order to stop the debt from growing. Is that realistic? Is it possible to have an $86 million surplus by 2007? Again, I hope I'm wrong, but is government being honest when they say this is possible? Mr. Speaker, the truth is the government is not looking beyond the spring season. They are buying time, and that is why this plan is being put into place. Again, the reality is that surpluses, again, are very doubtful without a plan for creating more financing for this province. Remember, this is the same government who said we could afford tax cuts when we really couldn't. A tax cut is premature until we start to attack the debt. We are talking about a $12 billion debt, over twice the amount of our budget. Are or will we be any further in our goal with this bill? What is possible? That is what government should ask before any bill is put forward. As I have said, government will need at least $86 million to stop the debt from growing. Whether that comes from the management fund or a surplus, we will have to wait and see. But we are doubtful of a surplus without a plan to create it or other programs suffering. Another part of this bill is making it increasingly difficult for government to attain a surplus. The only way government will be able to achieve a surplus is to grow the economy, and that is the way it should be. Putting people to work and paying taxes into the system is just good common sense. But there is nothing in this bill that will help grow the economy. We should be putting all of our energy and resources into this, especially into our rural areas. In fact, portions of this bill will slow the economy, in particular the large corporations' capital tax. Will this deter businesses from coming to this province? Has any thought been put into this? Mr. Speaker, our party does believe in tax cuts, but only when they are affordable. They are not affordable now, and we never wanted to see the tax cap implemented, not with a growing debt. Tax cuts will not be affordable for some time. We have added $1 billion to our debt in this past 5 years. At the same time, our party never wanted to see taxes go up. The corporation capital tax is a tax increase, pure and simple, and that may do us more harm than good. We oppose new taxes in the election, and we are not pleased with this tax measure. Mr. Speaker, it is easy for government to increase this tax. The NDP won't oppose it because they don't understand economics. They must not if they can't see that this debt is growing to $12 billion plus. It's an easy hit and probably politically popular, but this tax is a job killer. This tax will not help government achieve a surplus in the long run. We don't need a job killer in this province, we need a job maker. As jobs are created, taxes will come down. Being a person in business all my life, that sounds like a better idea to me. And speaking of ideas, Mr. Speaker, there's lots of ideas. In the Digby-Annapolis area, there's a great potential for economic growth. It just needs promotion. We have an airport in Digby. In a 500-mile radius of that lives 15 million people. And according to statistics, over 2% of these people have access to small airplanes that like to get away for the weekend. That's 300,000 people with airplanes that travel over 100 miles an hour. New York to West Nova Scotia, and the time it takes for me to drive to this city. I can see a busy airport in Digby. Why doesn't Nova Scotia tourism see this? This is a lot more potential. There's a lot more potential around this province also. Mr. Speaker, another part of this bill indicates who this government thinks is rich. This government is adding a fourth tax bracket. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the new tax bracket starts at $93,000. New Brunswick implemented a fourth tax bracket some time ago, but they set their final tax bracket at $107,000 to $160,000. Mr. Speaker, for most people in Nova Scotia, $93,000 is a lot of money, no question. Undoubtedly, doctors, engineers, and others might be lost to New Brunswick because our highest tax bracket is $14,000 less than New Brunswick. That's well worth moving on. Mr. Speaker, every tax bracket is lower in Nova Scotia, and the basic personal exemption is the lowest in Canada. The reason is inflation.
Now, member for Digby-Annapolis has the floor.
I got them all worked up, Mr. Speaker. The reason is inflation. The reason is inflation and the failure of this government to index tax credits to inflation. Tax increases every year in this province through the back door. Again, government should freeze taxes, not decrease them, and not increase them. Every year, taxes are going up because of inflation, and Nova Scotians are none the wiser. Even if a small tax cut remains in place for Nova Scotia, making under $29,000, they will see their tax cut disappear. Low-income Nova Scotians are not protected from inflation, and the tax cut is an illusion. Government protected the tax cut for low-income Nova Scotians temporarily, but it will disappear with inflation. Let us make it clear that taxes have to be stable until we can afford a reduction. It will be a long time considering the challenges we face in terms of debt and increasing health costs. Mr. Speaker, another part of this act with regard to pensions is necessary yet could have been avoided. Increases in the amount of 1% be made to the Teachers' Pension Fund and Public Sector Fund. The Public Sector Fund was over 100% funded 3 years ago, and the Teachers' Pension Fund was at 90%. The question is, what happened? How do you go from 100% funding to a little over 76% 3 years later? The markets were down, but why were risks being taken over 100% funded? I believe that the true nature of pension loss requires further disclosure on the part of government. We will have other opportunities to discuss this bill clause by clause, but I wish to make some comments on the increases in taxes for registrating an unlimited liability company. This measure will bring in $1.6 million for the province, as long as Nova Scotia is unique as the only Canadian jurisdiction that currently provides this service. Mr. Speaker, not only does registering these companies bring in money for the province, the registration process involved in setting up an unlimited liability company provides work for our legal accounting professionals. The concern is that increases in fees will chase business away from local lawyers and accountants. Government is increasing their fees because they think that Nova Scotia is the only jurisdiction, but it should be noted that Alberta is ready to allow unlimited liability companies to register in Alberta. If Alberta fees are lower, there will be no unlimited liability companies registering in Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, in closing, I want to say again that we are uncomfortable with some of the tax measures. We are alarmed that the government tried to pass off fee increases as cost recovery when they were really taxes. We are very concerned that the debt management plan is unreachable and that it is designed to just get this government past this spring. This bill demonstrates a lack of vision by the government. This could do us great harm in the future financially. Mr. Speaker, we believe this bill confirms that the government does not have a plan beyond this spring. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognize the Honourable Minister of Finance. We close debate on Bill number 62. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank all the members for their contribution to the debate during second reading. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move second reading of Bill number 62.
The motion is for second reading of Bill number 62. Is the House ready for the question? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill 62, entitled An Act Respecting Certain Financial Measures.
Or this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call Bill number 61, Theatres and Amusements Act.
Bill number 61, the Honourable Member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and please stand and talk on Bill 61 for second reading. Mr. Speaker, as everyone here probably knows by now, my soon-to-be famous, if he isn't famous already, son, Sean Massey, is the person that I owe this bill to. If it was not for him going into a video store, retail store, and purchasing a game rated mature for 17 years and older when he was only 14, I would not have come up with this fantastic idea to move this legislation. Seriously, though, we must take steps to control the violence that our children are seeing, the same way as we do when they go to the movie theaters. However, unfortunately, there is nothing in place now to restrict access to violent video games in Nova Scotia. I know none of us here want our children playing violent video games at a young age. All we need to do here is have our legislation catch up to the technology that's available today to our children and our youth. Therefore, we do need to enforce age restrictions on the rental and purchase of video games in this province, and we must give businesses the legal authority that they need to enforce this restricted access. I know that in Nova Scotia we all feel that families are very important, and this is one way that we can lead the way in protecting our children. Mr. Speaker, this bill would amend the Theatres and Amendments Act, and it would establish a definition of video games. It would set the ESRB rating system as a provincial standard, while allowing for the provincial cabinet to make regulations adding further standards or classifications if it was necessary. It would ensure that retail outlets sell only games that have been rated by the ESRB or some other classification that may be adopted by these regulations. Mr. Speaker, when this issue first came forward to me, I did a little bit of research, and it has been shown, Mr. Speaker, that studies in the United States show that 78% of stores do allow unaccompanied minors to purchase these games that are rated for mature audiences. In fact, the state of Washington legislature found that there has been an increase in studies showing that correlation between exposure to violent video games, computer games, and various forms of holistic and antisocial behavior. Our current situation here in Nova Scotia is that the stores are not able to enforce the ESRB rating system that they voluntarily use. Stores currently do not have to display the mature or adult-only video games in a separate area. They do not have to display the rating system at all in the stores for parents, children, or youth to see. The federal government, our provincial and federal justice ministers have agreed that a rating system for video games is necessary to reduce children's exposure to violent media. British Columbia already has plans in place, and they have had to make it illegal to sell certain games in that province. The goals of our justice ministers... Mr. Speaker, I would like to, in closing, say that bullying and violence in our schools and in our communities is a growing problem. While the NDP agrees that a national uniform approach is a positive idea, we must move forward on our own and take this important first step now here in this province. We cannot wait for a national working group to protect our own children. And Mr. Speaker, I will leave it at that. Move for second reading. Thank you.
Now, a member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to speak in support of this particular piece of legislation. I believe that any piece of legislation that has merit in supporting and protecting children from a lot of the ills that are before them in today's society is a welcome and a positive measure. Mr. Speaker, I think it's fair to say that over the years, in particular the last 20 years, the culture within society has changed quite dramatically. Within the family institution, within the schools, within the community in general. And I believe that somehow we seem to have always come to this point where we're always suggesting that somebody else should accept the responsibility on many of the social problems that are before us. And it's refreshing when you hear through the mind and the mouths of young people in Nova Scotia, such as the young gentleman that's been referenced to see things as they really are. Mr. Speaker, as you know, I've always been a strong advocate of the young people in Nova Scotia, insisting that government give a greater voice to the young people in Nova Scotia, whether it be through the Youth Secretariat, whether it be through the advisory boards, the boards of governors and universities, or whether it's more active participation, as I've suggested on a number of occasions, and outlined the fact that I myself started a mentorship program for university students back in 1989 in my constituency to help educate young people to become better informed on how to become very positive and proactive citizens. So what we see here through this piece of legislation, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that we have a young person coming to some of the, well, it's, as I've always suggested, that this is the form of last resort of any justice you're going to get in the province of Nova Scotia. And if the young people come and ask for the help, then we owe it to them to do something about it. And this legislation speaks to that. Mr. Speaker, as a father of three, and I'm sure as many in this legislature have had the experience of being a parent and in some cases grandparent or a guardian to children, you see the many different ways that young people grow and develop into the future of tomorrow. As I've always said, the youth of today are the guardians of tomorrow's prosperity. And Mr. Speaker, all too often, as has been suggested, young people can get into liquor stores, you know, with fake IDs. All too often, young people can get into bars with fake IDs. That's not necessarily a negative on the individual young person, but it's a fact of a young person developing into an adult, and they challenge society in so many different ways. And we, as leaders and legislators, have an obligation to allow those young people to grow, make mistakes, but help them and to put the legal framework in place. This legislation helps to do that on this particular topic, Mr. Speaker. And with that, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Liberal caucus, we will be supporting this particular piece of legislation, as I know all members of this legislation will support any youth initiative that's before this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Recognize all member for Dartmouth East. We close debate on Bill number 61.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading of Bill 61.
Motion is for second reading of Bill 61. Is the House ready for the question? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill 61, title and act to amend Chapter 466 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Theatres and Amusements Act.
Order this bill referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, I move the House to now rise to meet again tomorrow at the hour of 9 a.m. and the House will sit for approximately 4.5, 5 hours in time to get 4 hours in on estimates, and then we'll adjourn for the weekend, Mr. Speaker.
Motion is the House adjourn to 9 a.m. Is it agreed? All those in favor say aye. Counterminded, nay. Motion is carried. The House is adjourned till 9 a.m.